Erica wakes up before the sun. Coffee gets cold before she's done. Calendar packed, but she makes it fit. Got 100 little jobs and she handles it. Therapy notes, then a schoolyard call. She's the one folks count on through it all. She knows every minute has a name still. She gives the tender ones away for the ones who get left on the edge. She stands up straight and says, Erica keeps time, keeps her heart in line for the ones who need room and the ones who don't fit the room. Erica keeps time, makes the hard days shine. Family dreams and grace, she don't let one good thing go to waste. She's a jack of all trades, yes ma'am. Fixes what she can with her own two hands. Runs a practice, keeps her word. And she hears the things some folks never heard. Autism, loud or quiet, she sees. Neurodivergence with dignity. She knows every minute has a name still. She gives the tender ones away. If the world gets rough and cold, she'll be the steady Erica keeps time, keeps her heart in line for the ones who need room and the ones who don't fit the room. Erica keeps time, makes the hard days shine. Family, dreams, and grace, she don't let one good thing go to waste. Erica keeps time. Yeah, Erica keeps time.
Hi, everyone. Happy Sunday to everyone. Thank you all very much for joining. My name is Noni, and I am the duck sitting on the chair on this side. Yes. So I appreciate every single one of you who's here with us today on a Sunday afternoon or Monday morning, wherever in the world you're located. So today is a very different episode, usually different than usual. Because first things first, April is Autism Acceptance Month. So that is a huge deal, and which is why I was very excited that our guest is joining us today to share their lived experiences and everything about themselves. And, and we as the audience get to learn from her a little bit. And then, and I know that there's quite a few new people who joined us at our What the Duck series. So I just wanted to share why What the Duck is the name of this show. I know it kind of sounds quirky and silly and weird and all that stuff. And also the image that you see right here is a side-eye duck. Um, so a few years ago, I was working as in a leadership team in a company, and two of the individuals working with me decided to confide in me, saying that they were both neurodivergent and they wanted to see if there were any resources that they could utilize to support themselves during their work hours or whatever have you. I didn't know what the company was doing as far as supporting the neurodivergent employees, so I decided to go to HR and I asked HR, "Do you have any resources for neurodivergent employees?" And they said, "What the F is that?" And that's where my side eye came in. Like, why would an HR person say that to someone else if they're looking for resources? So it's a play on words. And the side eye is definitely my face, even though it's a duck right now, but that was literally my face when they said, "What the F is that?" So that's why What the Duck exists. And that's why we're here to educate and make people aware of different kinds of people who exist out there, because different is not less. And we should all celebrate our differences and talents and all that good stuff. So before I bring up my guest, I actually have a trivia game for everyone who's joining us and would love for all of you to play. Um, so if you're ready to play, give me a thumbs up. I have like 5 questions, and the answers will be delivered immediately after the question. But I want you all to think about these questions, hopefully not too much, because they should be pretty self explanatory. So I'm glad that we're all joining us right now. Okay, let me pull up the trivia stuff, and then we'll be all good to go. All right, so as I mentioned, April is Autism Acceptance Month, and all the questions that are listed in this trivia game are all based on autism in general. Okay, so why don't we get started? I only got one thumbs up from Peter, so all right. Thank you, Peter, for the support. I appreciate you. All right. Question number one, and you will get 5 seconds to guess the answer, and you all just list your answers down. I understand that there might be um, some lag on either my side or on your side, but I will wait 5 seconds and then display the answers after that. All right, question number one. What is the definition of autism? A disease you can catch. B, a way the brain works differently. C, a problem with hearing. D, a mental illness that can be cured. You have 5 seconds to answer this question. List them down in the chat or in the conversation or the comment section. So A, B, C, or D. Okay, 5 seconds are up. The correct answer is B, a way the brain works differently. All right. Thank you, Peter. And then Kenny, both of you got it right. The answer is B. And Charles, you as well, you got the answer correct. The answer is B. B as in boy. All right, next question. Which of the following is true about autism? It is a spectrum disorder, meaning it affects everyone differently. B, it only affects children. C, all autistic people have the same symptoms. D, it is caused by poor parenting. You have 5 seconds to guess the answer. A, B, C, or D? Any guesses? All right. The correct answer is A. It is a spectrum disorder, meaning it affects everyone differently. Peter, you got it right again. Uh, Anyone else? Charles, you got it right as well. Kenny, you too. So far, I'm only having three people answer questions. It'd be great to have more people jump in or chime in. That would be fantastic. All right, next question. What are common but not universal traits of autism? Perfect hearing, always being happy, difficulty with social interactions and sensory sensitivities. D, being very talkative. So again, what are common but not universal traits of autism? A, perfect hearing. B, always being happy. C, difficulty with social interactions and sensory sensitivities. D, being very talkative. Any guesses? I have Kenny who said A. Peter says B. I'm sorry. Peter says C. Anyone else? Kenny says C now. And Felipe. Hi, Felipe. He also says C. So we have 4 people saying that C is the correct answer, and they would be right. The common and not universal traits of autism is definitely difficulty with social interactions and sensory sensitivities. All right. I believe the next question is the last question, so I hope I can get more participation from people here. What is a common misconception about autism? A, that all individuals with autism have intellectual disabilities. B, that people with autism can lead independent lives. C, that autism affects social skills. D, that autism is a spectrum disorder. What is a common misconception about autism? You have 5 seconds to answer this question. OMG. Okay. 5 seconds are over now. The correct answer is A, that all individuals with autism have intellectual disabilities. That is a very common misconception about autism. So Peter again got it right. He's winning. He's on a streak right now. Then there's Charles and then Kenny all saying A. Seems like Peter is the leader of the herd. That's awesome. Thank you very much for answering your questions, Peter, and everyone else. Appreciate you all. And I think I lied earlier when I said this was the last question. I think I have one more. Yes, I was, yeah. When do symptoms of autism typically appear? A, in adolescence, B, only after age 10, C, between 2 and 3 years old or early childhood, or D, during adulthood. When do symptoms of autism typically appear? A, B, C, or D? All right, Peter says A. No, I'm confusing myself. Okay, has anyone answered any questions yet? The correct answer is C, between 2 and 3 years old or early childhood. Uh-oh, Peter got it wrong this time. OMG, Kenny got it right. Kenny and Charles got it right. Congratulations, everyone. I think this was the last question that I had. But yes, autism typically appears between the ages of 2 and 3 or early childhood. Felipe, you are correct as well. And thank you very much, everyone, for playing. Appreciate you all. Oops, I removed myself from stage. Okay, so now that there's a person who I know I've been waiting for a very long time to talk to. Unfortunately, they're so busy that I couldn't get a hold of them earlier, but I'm glad that they could make some time now. And that is my guest, Erica Spring. And I will allow Erica to talk a little bit about who she is, about her own exploration with autism and her life and what she does for work as a therapist, and so on and so forth. So, without further ado, here is Erica. Welcome on stage. I'll move you. Let's switch so we can match our ducks and our faces. Yes. You're on mute.
Course I am. Hi. Thank you for the awesome intro.
Oh, thank you for being here. I appreciate you making the time because I know you are such a busy human being. So I'm glad that you were able to take some time out for us and for me.
I absolutely. I've been looking forward to this. I've wanted to be on What the Duck forever. And you're right. Time just keeps on getting in the way. So I'm glad that we're able to even talk about that aspect. So yeah, I'm a therapist. I do telehealth. I specialize mainly in PTSD and complex PTSD currently. I'm an EMDR therapist. I'm also a writer. I'm also a budding co-host of a podcast called Borrow a Bestie. Um, I'm a mom. I'm a mom of two kiddos, and I'm a wife. I'm also on the spectrum.
Yep, that is. I think you and I both agreed that you being a guest on April would be the best time because it is Autism Acceptance Month, and what a better way to introduce the topic or even go more in depth with someone who is on the spectrum. So
Yes.
I wanted to ask you, and please feel free to just tell me this is too personal, Noni. Shut up. Let's go for something else. But when did you find out or come to know that you were
Yeah.
on the spectrum?
So I am totally open because I think that this is how we bring things out to light and destigmatize them. So don't be afraid to be personal now. So I actually did not know for a very, very long time. I'm from the 1900s. And when I was born, women and girls did not have autism. That was a male thing. So my actual first diagnosis was I was shy, and you could not look at Erica, and you could not talk to Erica, and you could not touch Erica. Those were the instructions that my mother gave everybody. I then was given a title of being gifted, which sounds so cool. It's not, by the way. Yeah. And then later on, I was given a designation of having having generalized anxiety and then ADHD when I went to college, because in college I went to Mizzou and I went from being in a really, really small, super isolated kind of community to sitting in an auditorium full of 500 learners. So that was one of the big first moments of noticing something's a little bit different here. Fast forward, I have my son who's now 16, and I'm a therapist. And so as I'm watching my son develop, even though I'm a first time mom, I'm noticing he's not hitting developmental delays, or he's not hitting developmental milestones. He's got a delay in speech. He's showing some behaviors that I showed, but they look different. But being a therapist, I saw all of this and I started getting him help. And we had him assessed and diagnosed by 18 months with both ADHD and autism. And I remember talking to the doctor who had done the diagnostics for him and just kind of saying like, well, where do you think this comes from, doc? And he was like, do you want to look in the mirror now or later, lady? Like, but like you hit a cut and paste, like that's you. And I was like, you're right. It just looks different because of the gender situation. So I remember talking to my clinical supervisor before COVID and just saying, you know, the older I get, the more I feel like I can't be human. Like I'm tired. I'm tired all the time. I used to like I'm got on all my makeup today. So I was like known for like Barbie girl makeup, Barbie girl life, like everything was big and pronounced and very feminine. And it's not me, by the way. That's not who I am. When people actually get to know me, I don't look or act anything like this. But I noticed that, you know, probably in 2018, which would have been in my late 30s, that I just got very tired of being me. And it almost felt like a heavy depression. But luckily, I'm in the field and luckily, I've got some really great friends. And they were like, I really think that you need to be assessed for autism because we know that women, once they hit perimenopause, oftentimes this is one of the first windows into true demasking that we see with our level 1 women. And so I did get diagnosed when I was 40 officially, and I was diagnosed with level 1. And it also said on my report that I needed accommodations, which for me was the first time that I think that I struggled with accepting myself, because I had gone through my whole life, and my son is going to be so cringy that I would even say this, but I went through my whole life, my education, my parenting, my clinical supervision, my licensure. I went through everything raw dogging it.
Mm.
So when COVID happened, it was the very first time that I got to slow down, and I shifted away from being in person and doing therapy to telehealth. And that's when it really all started making sense. It was the first time that I had stopped masking. It's the first time that I think that I allowed myself to not be the entity that was created on demand that appealed to the humans to keep them comfortable. And what I've learned since then is that I've always been on the spectrum. My symptoms and features were always gender nuanced. So if I didn't speak, it was because I was shy. And if I didn't make eye contact, it was because I was shy. And if I was socially avoidant, it was because I was a bitch. I was told multiple times that I'm cold. I struggled with friendships, especially with other women. They would say that I was unapproachable because I didn't make eye contact. I also don't understand how women socialize. Like I would observe them constantly. That's how I got into the field of therapy. I would observe them because I wanted to fit in. But the way that women specifically where I lived would socialize, I would just look at them and I'm like, why are you all playing pretend? You don't even like each other. I just heard you talking about Krista and you hate her. Like, make it make sense. Like, why didn't you just say you hate Krista, sister? So I learned really, really quickly that I was not like them. And some of my first languages were about how I felt alien, which is a common thing that people on the spectrum talk about before they get a diagnosis. And I did specifically refer to other people as humans. because humans seemed very different than whatever I was. Not in a better way, but just in a, I don't know what the hell that is.
That is so much in-depth conversation or information about you that you shared, Erica, and I appreciate that because I think a lot of people, whether they're attending here with us or not, can relate to that, especially with the eye contact and the alienation, the outsider, the other. It's far too common than most of us think, and I'm glad that you have made the choice of becoming a therapist and speaking about it and educating the world about it in one way or the other. So thank you very much for sharing
You
that.
bet.
And one thing that you mentioned was the doctor saying, "Have you looked at yourself in the mirror regarding your son?" I was talking to someone who is they have OCD to the extreme, according to them, and they have some other things going on as well. And they said that autism, ADHD, and quite a few other neurological things or neurodivergence in general, they come from the mom more so
Yes,
than the father. That was such a shock to me.
correct.
Like, wow, okay. So
I
what do you want
too
to
have seen that in the data, and I can honestly say so. When I look back in my family history, it definitely comes from my mother's side. My one I have a maternal aunt who's a professor, and people would say things like, "Well, Janine is brilliant, but Janine only speaks about herself." And then her brother, my uncle, he was also given like he was the family genius. He did all the things, but nobody's actually seen my uncle Eddie since like 1983. Like we know he's out there. Hi, Eddie. He just doesn't speak to anybody. My grandmother, who recently passed, my mom's mom, definitely believe that she was on the spectrum. She put herself through nursing school in the 1950s and was just a powerhouse of a woman and made zero apologies for who she was. And so, again, once I started really thinking about things beyond caveats of these are just humans that have some really, really persnickety profiles, that all of us actually had an incredible amount of things in common. Um, not wanting to be seen, talking in first person, being little professors. And I do want to just say this, since the change has happened in our field, I appreciate the designation being put under neurobiology and neurodevelopmental versus psychiatric or psychological, because that's not it. However, I still struggle with some of the awareness that everything now is lumped in on the autism scale. um, 20 years ago, I would have been designated as Asperger's. And if I had my own language, I would probably go with that, because I feel that it is unfair to designate how I experience life in any way as the same as someone who is on level 3.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense, and I think there is so much more to autism than just one or two brackets or one or two boxes. So I think you educating us about level one versus level two versus level three is so important because we don't know, or at least I don't know. But it's good to have that information in the back of our minds just to be more
Absolutely.
aware. Yeah.
And we
So
often say this, if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism.
exactly, exactly. Nothing is the same. It's everyone has their own different um, behaviors.
Yes.
But that is that's such a great piece of information to know and learn about. So thank you, Erica. I appreciate that. And I have a question about what EMDR is, but before that, I'm very curious because the topic of today's conversation is time management. And you mentioned you're a therapist slash clinician, podcaster, and then I think you earlier you mentioned that you were a poet. You're of course you're a mom. You have two kids. You're married. You have a spouse, and you have a lot of different things going on. And you still show up and maintain your calm. And you don't seem. You said that you were tired, but you don't seem tired to me. So you're pulling yourself off really well, I think. So how do you do that? How do you manage your time on a day-to-day basis?
So I've always seen time as a very different thing than I think most people experience it. So I don't operate on a like a 9 to 5 nighttime, daytime. I actually just kind of see everything as like a 24-hour experience. And I, like many neurodivergent people, actually do not require as much sleep as neurotypicals. I actually had genetics testing. My husband gave me one of those fun gene testings one year for Christmas. And my mom would always joke that Erica doesn't sleep. And I was diagnosed with insomnia, but it wasn't like it bothered me. Like nothing would ever change my production or my mood or anything. I just didn't require very much time down. That genetics test confirmed that there's like only 5% of the world who has the genetic defect that basically allows us to operate fully under 5 hours of sleep or less. So there's one caveat. There is something in my DNA that actually does not need 6 to 7 to 8 hours to perform. If I hit 4, we're golden. We're doing it. Because of that lack of rigidity with like it's now 9 o'clock a.m. versus 9 o'clock p.m., I think that it allows me to move in ways that are not rigid, which sounds a little bit funny because a lot of people assume that people on the spectrum are rigid. I'm rigid about my time management, but not the concept of time. So, what I mean by that is how I experience time. If I'm in flow, which is when I'm doing EMDR, when I'm working, when I'm podcasting with you, and I'm completely present, it's very monotropic. And so time just stops, everything stops. But I also, because of the ADHD, I also love to multitask. And when those are automated tasks and nothing that's super complex where I need to be completely engulfed, I am a multitasking queen. When my husband and I first got together, he thought that I was basically ignoring him all the time because we would be watching a show and he would be in his chair and I would be in my chair, but I would also be writing. And then I would also be talking or directing. And he would always be like, do I need to pause this? And I'm like, absolutely not. And I could replay back what they had just said and then still, and for years he didn't get it. And he finally was like, oh my gosh, like you really do. And yeah, I do. So I can be having a very, very direct conversation while enjoying a movie, while making a schedule, while looking at dinner. I don't know what that's about, except it's just something that I've always been able to tap into and do. I don't suggest it. The studies and research show that most humans do not multitask very well, but I can hold several different conversations at once and it just doesn't bother me. So how do I get things done? Well, I would love to tell you that there's something like super brilliant and very forward, but it's very basic. I write shit down. Okay. And then I put on there when you're supposed to do that. And if it's not written down, guess what? It doesn't happen, especially now in perimenopausal land. I now no longer like expect my brain to remember everything. But I think one of the things that I really, really enjoy about how I experience time is nothing feels impossible. I hear people say, well, I don't have enough time to do that. And I'm like, that's so limiting. Like it's time, bend it, flip it, expand it. Like I know it sounds really, really like metaphysical, but when you when you do know a little bit about quantum mechanics and such, we know that time can be like this, right? So I think of it like this. If you want there to not be enough time, I assure you there won't be enough time. If you have a mindset of abundance, that there's enough time for everything, this is where you can get nuanced. I also do run very, very tight ship. My husband likens me to a robot. I do the same thing, the same time, every day, the same way. My internal clock tells me what to do. I don't have to say, oh, I don't have like time blindness or anything like that. But if my schedule does get interrupted, you're more than likely going to see a meltdown. And that is one of the negative things about operating like this and certainly being on the spectrum. I don't like being late. If I am late, it can throw things off quite a bit. I've had to develop a tremendous amount of distress tolerance around that because sometimes it's just impossible. But I give it my best. And then I will also say this. I enjoy the challenge of trying to perfect any number of movements. Like I think about like Bruce Lee talking about how he enjoyed basically his state of flow where he could achieve so many motions and movements in the most eloquent way. And so even something simple like cutting up strawberries, it's done in a certain way with the least amount of moves. And when I execute that, it brings me great joy. And so it's also reinforcing me heavily because the sensation that I get out of perfecting a move to make it the most efficient is one of the most nerdy, thrilling things that you will ever see me experience.
I'm smiling and giggling like that because when you mentioned the cutting of the strawberries in a specific way, so when I do my laundry, I'll tell you this, Erica. When I do my laundry, and I put, of course, my pillows in the pillowcase and all that stuff, it all has to be placed in a specific way on the bed, and of course on the pillow, my comforter, whatever. It has to be in a very specific way, and if
Yes,
it's then only I can sleep. My when my partner does the laundry and he puts stuff away, it's all over the place, and for whatever reason I just can't sleep at night,
I hear
and
you.
I can totally relate to that. So thank
Yes.
you for
I,
sharing.
Absolutely. I think that time management is a challenge for a lot of people. And I think that I've been really, really, I was primed for it. I did have a challenging, upbringing, not having any accommodations. I would have frequent meltdowns. My mom would call them nerve downs, but nobody would really know what to do with me. So I was in isolation quite a bit. And so I learned really, really quickly on that if anybody wanted me to be a part of their anything, their classroom, all the way up into the family, that I had to be very, very productive. And so I learned very, very quickly on how to get as many things done as possible because it was one of the ways that I was allowed in.
Mm.
And it was one of the ways that I was given value because otherwise I was weird.
Of course, I totally get that. I totally get that. You have to be productive and bring something to the table, or else you are useless. Uh, and in the most harsh way possible, like you're completely useless,
Absolutely.
and you don't belong here. Basically, would be the statements used. So I totally get that, and whatever that's coming out of your mouth is so resonating with me, Erica. It's not even
I'm
funny.
glad.
But I'm glad that you're here. And while you're here, we're going to give you a couple minutes of breathing room and then say hi to everyone who has joined us via chat. So we start off with Kenny is here. Hi, Kenny. Jameson is here. Long time no see, Jameson. I'm glad that you could join us. And then we have Peter, who loved the song that I created for you. So I'm glad. I hope you were able to hear it, Erica. If not, I'm happy to send it to you separately so you can listen to it. And then we have Coach Carrie Willis, who actually sang for us this past Friday, a song that I've never heard of before, which was quite embarrassing, but it's okay. It's all good. And then we have Charles joining us, who loves the picture of you, Erica, and then my duck, which is great. Then we have who else do we have joining us? And then we have the quiz. Jackie is here. I haven't seen Jackie in so long, but I hear that she got a haircut. Jackie, you look great. Thank you for sharing your pictures of getting a haircut. Always good to learn more about you. And then we have Felipe who joined us, who also joined us on Friday. And he is such a great singer when he's having fun. I'll just leave it at that, Pete, Felipe, because I don't want to put you on the spot. You know what I'm talking about. And then we have who else do we have here? We have William, Rochelle. Thanks for joining us, William. Appreciate you. Then we have Coach Carrie. Uh, I have to have at least 7 hours of sleep. My son has been getting 12 hours since he was a baby. Wow. I wish I could sleep 12 hours a day since I was a baby, but I couldn't. And then we have Charles, who says he goes back and forth between 5 to 6 hours of sleep. and 9 to 11 hours and left to myself all day, not shower, skip a meal. Yeah. Sleep is the greatest thing ever, only when you get it. If you don't get it, then oh well. Then we have uh, Kenny again. He's soon to be 68 years old on June 2nd. If I have one number incorrectly, I won't hear the end of it. I have numerous clashes between myself and his alter ego. Uh, Thanks, Peter. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I didn't. If Felipe is an HR champion, and I don't want to put him on the spot. So now back to you, Erica. After humiliating and making fun of everyone, my question to you was regarding why did you specialize, or what? Not why did you, but what inspired you to specialize in PTSD, and what is EMDR for those of us who don't know?
Absolutely. So, like a lot of things in my life, things just kind of fell into my lap. And I actually wasn't supposed to be a therapist at all. I wanted to be a lawyer because my family would always tease that I could argue with anything about anybody, and I can. But you have to have an undergrad degree before you go to graduate school of any kind. So I actually have a degree in broadcast journalism, which sounds kind of weird again for somebody on the spectrum. But I did radio. I didn't listen to anybody at Mizzou whenever they were like, radio is a dying art. And I'm like, the hell it is. People like to tell stories and people will listen. And we see that now with podcasting, even though it's not radio, isn't it? So I'm actually a former NPR affiliate reporter. I did political reporting, but it was very challenging for me because the press corps is all men and it's all aggressive. And well, I can do those things, but I don't do it nearly as well. So I ended up taking a class in agency counseling, which has to do with how we help people who are in underserved communities. And I really resonated with it because, again, my early life was in Louisiana. I was actually born in Mississippi, and I spent a lot of my childhood in Louisiana and deep, deep poverty. And so I understood these themes in a way that a lot of my classmates did not because they were from a lot of privilege. So I was hooked after that. And then I just stuck around and completed the degree. And becoming a licensed therapist, it again kind of fell in my lap. I was doing case management for children. I was doing contractual work with a great guy named Jeff Janney, who's known in Kansas City as one of the forefathers of a lot of our autism community. And I was doing a lot of in-home behavioral health with families who had a child on the spectrum to help them execute behavior plans and the like. EMDR is the current gold standard for treating PTSD. The acronym stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. It is a somatic experience. People don't talk about their trauma. They feel their trauma in their body and release it this way. And I happenstance to fall into that because it's quite expensive. It's about $5,000 to learn how to be an EMDR therapist, and I sure as shit didn't have that money back then. So the state of Missouri was kind enough to start an initiative to get so many of us therapists trained in EMDR because we've got the need. We just didn't have the numbers. So I was picked, and I got to go to training for free. That was in 2017. And it's one of those things that takes years to master. Like what the first 2 or 3 years, like I would not even remotely call myself a trauma therapist at all. But now that I'm about 10 years in, I find it to be one of the most rewarding aspects of my treatment. Now, why complex PTSD? Well, if you look in the DSM, there is no diagnostics for complex PTSD. The closest thing that you'll see is something called chronic PTSD lasting longer than 3 months. But most of us out here living in the clinical world have known for years that there is a need for a name for something that exists that's related to developmental and attachment trauma. So the caregiver is the one that did the bad thing, not some random bad guy in Afghanistan. It happened more than once So the pattern looks more like a shotgun blast when you ask them where it hurts. Single episode PTSD had happened one time, one place, one very specific scenario. We expect bad guys to do the bad guy thing, and this is where complex PTSD gets so hard. It's your mom, it's your dad, it's your grandma, and they did it every single day. We're not talking necessarily about heinous abuse, and this is why a lot of people don't even know that they've experienced this. They say, but I ate. Okay, cool. You had food. Well, my parents didn't molest me. Okay, great. You don't have sexual abuse. But if one of your parents had an untreated mental health disorder and then you were having to take care of that parent, that's not normal. That's not good. If you had deep poverty, if your parents had substance abuse, if your parents did make you feel afraid, if your parents hit each other, you witnessed domestic violence regularly. This is what we call the profile of complex PTSD. The symptoms have nothing in common with traditional PTSD. So that's more of my bag. And the main reason why I focused on it is because I lived it. I am a survivor of complex PTSD. I fight hard for survivors because we're out here, and we often are misrepresented that people that go through these kinds of experiences are going to be addicts, that they're going to be abusers, that they're going to be nobodies, and it couldn't be further from the truth. Most of the data shows that people who have endured 5 or more adverse childhood experiences actually are some of the most well-adjusted adults and high-achieving adults that you'll come across. My adverse childhood experience score is 7. And so there are people who have it worse. But I knew when I was early in that I could speak a language that only those who had experienced it could speak. And so when I do this work, when people come to see me, they're coming to see me for a couple of things. EMDR is probably the last. The very, very first thing I think that people are seeing me for is that they get in front of a human who, first of all, recognizes what's going on, speaks the language, and is not afraid and will not look the other way. There are very few people I find when I was looking for therapists who even understood what the hell it was. By the way, it often gets first diagnosed as bipolar or borderline personality disorder. It takes upwards of 7 years to get a correct diagnosis of complex PTSD. And now that we're burning down the DSM, I can't wait to see what we're going to come up with this, because we're definitely going to see complex PTSD.
Oh, it's been so long since I even touched a DSM. Oh my goodness, the book.
Don't even worry about it, because we're burning it. It's done. Goodbye,
Yeah.
colonialism. But goodbye, all of it. I don't know what they're going to make in its place, but I guarantee you it's going to be a lot different.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that, and I'm actually looking forward to touching that book again, whatever it is, afterwards, just to learn more. And I mean, you were talking about working with patients who have CPTSD, and EMDR would be the last thing that they were thinking about. So my question to you then, as someone, as a neurodivergent therapist yourself, are your patients neurotypical, or are they neurospicy, or are they a combination of both? You said that you talked about speaking the language and all that, but I'm
Yes. So
curious.
yes, under the it's not a diagnostic term, neurodivergence. It is a sociological term. So, we think of, I call it like iOSs. So we've got neurotypicals, and this represents upwards of 80% of humans. They're neurotypical. It's a standard iOS. Neurodivergence is just an umbrella that designates the following: ADHD, ADD, autism, dysphagia, dyscalculia, dyslexia, OCD, generalized anxiety disorder. And then there's three acquired neurodivergencies. One is traumatic brain injury, or TBI. Please check out one of my really, really great colleagues on his work with traumatic brain injury as an acquired neurodiversity. His name is Dr. Halil Goldstein. He's out of St. Louis. We know that people who have had a traumatic brain injury, their brains are going to rewire differently, thereby making them neurodivergent. And then there is also acquired neurodiversity through complex PTSD. If you did not get the proper ingredients growing up as a child, your brain is going to be rewired by happenstance in a way that you will survive. But it will not look like the same brain of a child who had a normal mom, dad, food, no poverty, no drugs, no mental health. The other one is PTSD. So if I've observed war, my brain is going to wire differently. So when we think about all of those different profiles, the only thing that they really all have in common is that the way that the brain orients and wires itself becomes different than the neurotypical. So to answer about my clients, I would say that there's a pretty good mix. However, what I do find now in this niche work is not only do most people with complex PTSD have a neurodivergent trait or 3, but I also do tend to identify later on diagnosed women who have never ever thought of themselves this way before. So right now, being the age that I am, it's not like when I was young and I attracted young clients. Now I'm attracting 40, 50, 60-year-old clients. And so I think I'm one of the people who actually first will put in the ear, hey, I think that we might have some neurospicy stuff going on in addition to this acquired neurodivergence.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And that's good to hear that there's no limitation towards the type of patients that you get or that you want to work with. So that's always a positive thing, and there's no biases involved whatsoever.
No.
So Erica, we have 9 minutes left, and I want to ask you another question. And then if anyone has any other questions that they want to ask, they can just leave them in the comments, and then I can display them on the screen. What is something that many people get wrong about the word trauma from your experience?
Well, right now, I think the biggest thing is what most of us in the field call TikTok mental health. So now everything has been translated as trauma. So that's not true. Okay. People, like, we do twin studies. All right. One twin gets raised in California and they never have anything happen to them. And one twin gets raised in Somalia and they see all kinds of things. All right. What happens? Life. All right. So we have two completely different setups here. When we talk about trauma, the things that happen are typically why people even throw out the T word. Something bad happened. I saw a fire. I was assaulted. I had my leg cut off. So having a bad thing happen doesn't dictate trauma. It doesn't even define trauma because bad shit happens all the time, every single day. And the data shows that less than 5% of the population represents PTSD. So why? Because it's not what happened, it's what didn't happen. So this work heavily comes from Gabor Mate, who basically says that the nature of being alive is bad shit's going to happen. You're going to lose people. You're going to watch shit happen. You're going to go through a tornado. You might go through a war. You might be involved in a shooting. This is just the nature of living. Does that mean that you are destined to have PTSD or trauma? No. So if you come home and your parents believe you, if the bad thing happened, there's one thing. If you have parents at all to go home to, there's another thing. If you've got a house, there's another thing. If you've got treatment, there's another thing. If you've got food, water, shelter, clothing, the need to belong, all the things met. These are what we call protective factors. And the more protective factors a person has, the least likely they are to experience PTSD. So what sets a person up for trauma is when it happens in isolation, they're not believed, they get no help, and they have no support, and they're left alone to fix themselves. So I think right now, especially young people, they all think that everything is trauma, everything is trauma, everything is traumatic. No, it is not. Get used to it, kids. I'm going to be the first one to tell you bad shit's going to happen every single day. And you do not have PTSD. I also am really, really over people self-diagnosing. This is not fun. This is not something that people sign up for because it's cute. But seemingly there is a draw for some unknown reason to me that everybody would like to be a part of this club. I would not recommend it. we're often addicts, we're often suicidal, and most of us don't get better unless we actually get some real help. And so when I think about trauma, I think about this. I think about anybody who was left alone after the bad thing happened.
Yeah, for sure. And then some people, I mean, I think that's also cultural too. Something bad happens, and then you have the resources, but you don't go get those resources because that would bring shame to either you or your family or whoever else. So I get where that could be an issue. And then you're right, a lot of the younger people, everything is traumatic, and especially if they haven't lived life yet. So I will be right behind you when you advertise saying bad shit is about to happen and you haven't seen anything yet because you're a baby. No hate to anybody. No hate to anybody.
It's not that little people can't experience trauma, but again, if they're in isolation and without support, then this is where it's going to be a sticking point. Somebody asked what's the difference between trauma and abuse. Well, trauma can include a tornado and nobody's abusing you. Trauma can include a car accident, nobody's abusing you. Abuse is when somebody wants to hurt you. They've chosen to hurt you. They've literally picked you and they've decided to hurt you on purpose. So that's the difference. And one has intent and one can happen anytime.
So abuse can be physical, mental, emotional,
sexual, financial, spiritual,
anything. Gotcha.
At the same time. It's not necessarily just going to happen because those things happened. I know it can sound strange, but there are people who have been sexually assaulted who do not have PTSD.
Yeah. That's right. You are correct. And we have 4 minutes left, Erica. This conversation went by so quickly, I did not even realize. So thank you, Charles, for asking that question. And then I think I have one last question before we close out for the day. And that is, Erica, if there was one thing you want the audience to walk away with, what would that be?
The big one. Well, one, I hope that they recognize that me and you hanging out together is always going to be a good time. And that we should definitely like hang out together some more. And I also really sincerely hope that people recognize a couple of things. One, autism will look different, especially along gender lines. And I encourage women specifically who are in perimenopause and are finding that their masks are getting very heavy and they feel like they are very tired and they don't know who they are, please go get some help. It will not change who you are, but it will change your shame. And it will give you a community and a language that's much more connected than when we're in isolation, not knowing who we are. We know we're different. Nobody signs up for autism because they, again, think that it's going to be cool. It's because you know you don't fit in and you need a language that gives you a reason to feel like you're a part of something and not something broken. Autism is not a superpower. I also want to walk away with that. I know that people have tried to frame that and I enjoy the positivity, but I can't eat certain foods. I'll have a complete meltdown when people say like, oh, they'll eventually eat. If you have AFRID, no, you won't. You'll starve to death. If I hear loud noises, I will still have a meltdown and I still struggle with eye contact. So fun fact, I don't need glasses. I wear these because these are called you can't see me glasses. And I have a ton of them. So when you're looking at a professional and you say, but she doesn't need any accommodations, it couldn't be further from the truth. I've always had accommodations. I lived off campus because I couldn't live around others. I work by myself because I can't work around others. I do telehealth because I don't like to be in the same room as others. And I wear glasses and makeup and hair because I don't want people to look at me. So just because we have low accommodations doesn't mean that there are no accommodations. And just because you're looking at a well-designed mask does not mean that you are any closer to that person than where you started. Lastly, I really, really hope that people are able to see that we really are out here. We really do work. We really do the things. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's been easy, but I believe that if one of us can do it and we show the paths and we stop the gatekeeping, then we can bring more and more one of my least favorite data points about spectrum is that upwards of 80% of people on spectrum are not fully employed. I am one of 11% of women in this country that have a master's degree, and I'm one of the 20% that is full-time employed. And I know I'm a rarity, but I believe in my advocacy work that we make some of the most tremendous and hardworking employees that you can find. It's just about giving us the accommodations and the tools and the space to be who we need to be so that we can work.
Profound words from Erica Spring, Dr. Erica Spring. Are we allowed to call you doctor or no?
I'm not a doctor. I'm just
Okay.
this little girl. I got a master's degree, girl.
Okay.
And no, it would be so off-putting. No, just call me Erica.
Okay, profound words from Erica. And we are at time now. So I
Yes.
wanted to say thank you very much for donating your knowledge and your time and your wisdom to all
Thank
of us,
you.
every single human who has joined us live or maybe in the future for replay. Appreciate you all being here. And please do not forget to add Erica Spring on LinkedIn if you haven't already. If you see any one of my descriptions for this event, her name is right there highlighted. So feel free to click on the name and then you'll be able to see her profile and get connected. And thank you once again. I hope you all have a fantastic Sunday and a great rest of your weekend.
That's right. Bye, guys. Thank you so much. Had so much fun.
Likewise.